Let's get started with our first news. Paddy Pimblett has finally gone off on Dan Hooker after their heated back and forth over the last few days. It all started with an interview Paddy did with MMA Guru last week, where he used an analogy to describe how bad Dan Hooker's grappling is. He said Dan couldn't grapple a piss off his mum, and that line immediately set things on fire. Hooker fired back hard, calling Paddy names, and then going way over the line by bringing up Paddy's close friend Ricky, who tragically died by suicide in 2022. In an interview with Main Event TV, Paddy explained his side of the story. He said, "I never said nothing bad about his mom. Mrs. Hooker is probably a lovely woman. I never said a bad word about her. I just used an analogy for how bad his grappling is." Then he goes and says something about my dead mate who can't defend himself. That's just weird. Paddy went on to say his friend's family even messaged him, confused about what was happening and why Ricky's name was being dragged into MMA trash talk. He couldn't believe how people twisted his words while barely calling out Hooker for mentioning someone who had passed away. To Paddy, that crossed a clear line. He also didn't hold back on Dan Hooker's career. Paddy said that Hooker is beneath him now, especially once he wins the belt. He pointed out that Hooker is 5-5 in his last 10 fights and called him an absolute crab. He even compared him to Michael Chandler, saying if people think Chandler is washed, then what does that make Dan Hooker, considering Chandler knocked him out in 2 minutes? Paddy finished by saying that mentioning a dead person and implying it was somehow his fault is below the belt. In his eyes, he used a harmless analogy about grappling, and somehow he's the bad guy, while Hooker brought up his dead friend. In the MMA world, Paddy says, no matter what he does or says, people will always try to make him look like the worst man alive. Move on to another news. Daniel Cormier has finally responded to Jon Jones after Jon called him a head and accused him of being difficult to work with. The comments came from Jon during a recent interview with Red Corner MMA, where he talked about filming ALF Reality with DC. Jon claimed that Cormier treated staff poorly, bossed people around, and didn't connect with the fighters. Those words clearly didn't sit right with DC. Speaking on the Ariel Helwani show, Cormier didn't dodge the issue. He addressed it head-on and made it clear that while Jon might see him in a certain way, that doesn't mean it's the truth. DC said that they were around each other every single day during filming, and that most of the time they were actually cordial. He explained that there were even moments where they laughed together and shared normal human interactions. But Cormier also made something very clear. Just because they can work together doesn't mean they have to be friends. He said if he doesn't have to be around Jon Jones, he's not going to voluntarily choose to be. And why would he? Their history is long, bitter, and filled with personal attacks. DC admitted that in the past, things between them got ugly. He said they both spoke negatively about each other's families, and that their rivalry crossed lines on both sides. He also pointed out that Jon cheated constantly and did things that he never truly had to answer for in a real, meaningful way. For Cormier, letting all that go and pretending everything is fine would be dishonest. He said he doesn't harbor the same level of emotion he once did, but that doesn't mean Jon gets a free pass. In DC's eyes, being cordial and being friends are two completely different things. He can work alongside Jon, do his job, and be professional, but he doesn't owe him friendship, respect, or forgiveness. Cormier ended by saying that he's a man. He knows who he is, he knows how he treats people, and he's not going to reshape himself just to fit Jon Jones's version of events. If Jon thinks he's those things, that's on Jon. DC will continue to move forward, stay professional, and do his thing without pretending the past never happened. Move on to another news. RDR is getting ready for his next big challenge as he's set to face Borralho at UFC 326. Ahead of the fight, RDR has been very open about how he feels, and he believes this is the perfect matchup for him. He says the timing is right, the opponent makes sense, and mentally he feels ready to fully push himself again. RDR explained that he's finally back in that place where he's motivated to train hard and compete at a high level. He talked about how important it is to have a clear fight lined up with a solid time frame because it lets him lock in and go into full training mode. For him, having that structure brings out his best performances. When it comes to Borralho, RDR sees a very interesting stylistic clash. He called it a cool matchup and said there are a lot of things he can work with in this fight. In his eyes, It's the type of opponent that brings out his strengths and allows him to show different layers of his game. He isn't overlooking the challenge, but he's confident in what he brings into the cage. At the same time, RDR also opened up about the future of his career. He admitted that he's getting tired of cutting so much weight to make middleweight. Over the past year, the weight cuts have put a lot of strain on his body, and he feels it every camp. Because of that, he's seriously considering finishing his career at light heavyweight, where he wouldn't have to put himself through that kind of physical stress anymore. However, he made it clear that he's not rushing that move. RDR says he still has a lot left to prove at middleweight first. Before he jumps divisions, he wants to show that he belongs at the very top where he is now. One of his main goals is proving that he can beat Brendan Allen on any night, except that one night in Canada. That loss still sits with him, and he wants to correct it. He also talked about wanting to fight through the division and get to the belt. For RDR, it's not just about changing weight classes. It's about earning everything the hard way. He wants to prove himself, test himself, and show that he's not done yet. With Borralho in front of him, RDR sees a perfect opportunity to remind everyone exactly who he is, what he's capable of, and why he's still a serious force in the UFC. Move on to another news. Islam Makhachev has officially shut down the idea of fighting Ilia at lightweight. While he says he's open to the matchup in general, he made it very clear that he has no interest in going back down to 155 to make it happen. Speaking to Match TV, Islam didn't hold back and explained exactly where he stands. Islam said he's open to fighting Ilia, no problem at all, but not if it means dropping back to lightweight. In his words, he already had the belt there and no one beat him for it. He didn't lose the title. He left the division on his own terms and moved up. So for him, going back down makes zero sense. He pointed out that returning to lightweight just to fight someone who just became champion in a lower division doesn't interest him. For Islam, the belt at 155 is already done. He's been there, dominated there, and moved on. He said going back for another belt is not exciting to him anymore. That chapter of his career is closed. Instead, Islam made it clear that if Ilia really wants the fight, then he should be the one to move up. Islam said that Ilia has nothing to lose by going up in weight. If Ilia loses, he can just go back down to featherweight, defend his belt, and continue his run there. From Islam's perspective, it's a safe move for Ilia. But for Islam, it's the opposite. He's already been the lightweight champion, and he's definitely not going down. He said it wouldn't make sense for him to call out someone from a lower weight class who hasn't proven anything yet at lightweight. In Islam's eyes, Ilia still has a lot of work to do at 155 before he should even be in the conversation with him. Islam also mentioned that Arman is calling Ilia out every single day. Arman is asking for that fight and trying to prove himself in the division. And Islam respects that. He sees Arman as someone who's actually grinding in lightweight, fighting the right guys, and earning his spot. So while fans might want to see Islam versus Ilia, Islam's message is clear. If that fight ever happens, it's not going to be at lightweight. Ilia would have to come up to him. Islam is done going backwards in weight. He's focused on what's next, not what's behind him. In short, Islam isn't afraid of the fight, but he's also not interested in taking unnecessary risks for no real reward. He's already conquered 155. Now he's chasing bigger challenges, bigger legacy, and bigger moments. Move on to another news. Arman popped up on N3on's stream last night and instantly turned it into pure entertainment. The two started talking about N3on's dyed hair, and Arman wasted no time roasting him. N3on said he dyed it because he wanted to look more manly and thought it made him look better. Arman looked at him and straight up said, "Manly? No, this is gay, bro." N3on was shocked and asked if he was serious. Arman doubled down and said, "Yeah, this is gay." The chat went crazy. N3on tried to defend himself and said girls like it. Arman fired back again, telling him, "This is gay, bro, I'm married." Then he started laughing and said he was kidding, but not really. He joked that he can't get girls anyway and that it's tough out there. The whole exchange had that awkward, brutal humor where Arman just kept pressing him and N3on didn't know how to respond. But the stream wasn't all roasting. Arman also had some really high praise for Dana White and how he treats fighters behind the scenes. When asked if he's cool with Dana, Arman said they're good friends. Then he explained what he respects most about him. Arman said Dana really helps people, especially fighters who need money or support. He shared stories about Armenian fighters who went through hard times. One guy crashed his car, and Dana sent him money. Another fighter wanted to retire, and Dana gave him extra money to help him transition. Arman said Dana always takes care of the fighters that he likes and believes in. He made it clear that Dana isn't just a boss to him, but someone who looks out for people when they're struggling. According to Arman, Dana doesn't talk about those things publicly, but behind the scenes, he's always helping someone out. That's why Arman has so much respect for him. So in one stream, Arman managed to do two things. First, absolutely cook N3 over his hair and make the whole chat lose it. Second, give real insight into how Dana White treats fighters when the cameras aren't rolling. It was funny, it was awkward, and it was also surprisingly genuine. Arman showed both sides of himself, the savage trash talker and the guy who respects loyalty and support in this sport. That's what made the whole segment hit so hard with fans. Move on to another news. Some very interesting inside info is starting to come out about a potential Ilia versus Islam Makhachev fight, and it might be closer than people think. The information didn't come from a random source either. It came straight from Merab, who says he recently spoke with Ilia and learned some details about what could be happening behind the scenes. In an interview today, Merab revealed that Ilia told him the fight with Islam might happen sooner than expected. Merab didn't go into full detail, but he made it clear that this isn't just talk or fan hype. According to him, there are real conversations happening, and Ilia is confident that something is moving in the right direction. Merab said that Ilia versus Islam is not just a dream matchup anymore. He said he knows some things from Ilia that he can't fully share yet. But the way Ilia explained it made it sound like the timing could line up very quickly. That immediately got people paying attention, because just days ago, Islam himself said he wouldn't drop back down to lightweight for the fight. So now the picture is getting a little clearer. Islam is open to fighting Ilia, but only if Ilia moves up. And now Merab is saying that Ilia already knows some inside details about how that could actually happen. That suggests Ilia might be seriously considering the jump, and the UFC could already be working on it. From Ilia's side, this is a huge opportunity. He's already champion, and if he moves up and challenges Islam, he instantly becomes one of the biggest stars in the sport. Even if he loses, he can go back down and still defend his belt. But if he wins, he becomes legend status overnight. From Islam's side, this also makes sense. He's already conquered lightweight. He's already proven everything he needs to prove there. He doesn't want to go backwards. If Ilia comes to him, then Islam gets a massive fight with massive legacy attached to it. Merab also made it clear that Ilia is very confident right now. He believes in himself, he believes in his skills, and he believes he can compete with anyone, even someone like Islam. That confidence is what makes this situation so dangerous for the rest of the divisions. So while nothing is officially announced yet, the signs are getting loud. Merab wouldn't say this publicly if it was nothing. Ilia wouldn't be talking about details if there wasn't real movement. And Islam already opened the door by saying the fight can happen, just not at 155. Everything is lining up for something big. The timing, the names, the stakes, and the momentum are all there. If this keeps moving the way it is now, Ilia versus Islam could be one of the biggest fights the UFC has put together in years. Move on to another news. Kamaru Usman has issued another heartfelt apology over the leaked FaceTime call with Anthony Joshua, and he's making it very clear that he takes full responsibility for what happened. Usman said this was a tough situation, and one he's never faced before, because he's never had to make a public apology like this in his entire career. But he knew it was necessary. Usman explained that, as a man, you have to take responsibility when you mess up, whether it was accidental or not. And in this case, he admitted the mistake was his. He said he was angry for a lot of reasons. First, he was angry at himself for not fully watching the vlog that went out on his channel. He said anything that gets posted is ultimately his responsibility, and missing that clip was a serious oversight. He also said he was angry because the situation put Anthony Joshua, who he called his Nigerian brother AJ, into a position where people started judging him and questioning his character. Usman didn't like seeing that. He didn't like seeing people online speculating and attacking AJ over something that never should have been public in the first place. Most of all, Usman said he was angry with himself for even giving people a lane to go after AJ like that. He said that part hurt the most because it goes against who he is as a person. He admitted straight up, "Man, I take full responsibility. "I can't apologize enough." Usman said he feels terrible about the whole thing and that he's still feeling bad about it even now. He made it clear that this isn't something he takes lightly. He said his character means everything to him, and putting someone he respects in a bad position is not something he ever wants to be known for. At the end of the day, Kamaru Usman owned the mistake. No excuses, no deflection, just accountability. And he made it clear that if he could take it back, he would in a heartbeat, because loyalty and respect are things he does not play with.